warm welcome again, everyone. The IKI Small Grants team is so much happy to have the session with you today on results-based project management. And in this session today, we will dive deeper into the main buzzwords of a typical results chain logic. So we have a look on the objective, the outcome, and the output, which means the effect of your project on different levels, as well as on the indicators and how these help to monitor your project progress. And last but not least, also at the baseline, target value, and means of verification. And of course, we know that all of this has been part of your application already, so it's not entirely new to you, but we just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And we have also gotten some feedback from previous calls that this is a topic that a lot of you are very interested in. And yeah, some of you might also already be in touch with our project managers for the in-depth review. And even if you have not been contacted so far, this webinar, I think, will provide you with valuable insights that might help you to speed up the review phase. So before we get started with such heavy topics, I think we are all curious on who is with us today. And since the online mode is a wonderful opportunity to bring people together from all over the world, but it's not so much personal interaction and the exchange is somehow limited. So we also decided to include 2 group activities in the session. So together you can then step-by-step draft your own results logic for an example project. And we have also planned sufficient time for these activities, so you can also use it to maybe get to know each other a little bit. And we have also highlighted a map. I hope you can see this on the slide, where you see from where you're joining in today. And you can also see by number how many projects you can find in each region. And yeah, again, I already see that some of you have introduced themselves to the chat, so this is very cool. And maybe you can just use also the chat to just have some conversation if you want. And we will also open this session, like let this meeting be open after we finish our input. We will leave, but if you still would like to network or just talk with each other, feel free to do so. And then last but not least, I'm stopping my introduction relatively soon. A few words on the housekeeping. So, of course, as you all know, please leave your microphones on mute as long as you're not talking. And also there will be a Q&A session at the end, so we can address some general questions there. If you have any remarks directly related to the presentation, to any specific topic, you can also raise your digital hand or use the chat, so we will try to address it as soon as possible. And like as a last resort, of course, you can also send us an email at any time. So if you have a very specific question, for example, for your specific project, always send us an email. You're welcome to do so. And we can also chat over there. Okay, and now I will hand over to my colleague Lisa, who is going to get started with the real topic.
Thanks, Laura, for the introduction. Yes, now let's get started with the topic, result-based project management. So focusing on results is a standard procedure in development cooperation. I mean, you all know that each and every donor will have some sort of a results chain logic that is to be applied. But sometimes the key terminology varies. This kind of structure should be the starting point for each project. When you have a project idea, you normally have an idea about what goal you want to achieve and also by which means you want to achieve it. The results chain logic is basically nothing else. It provides an overview of what the project intends to achieve and how it is working towards this goal. With the project you are implementing, you are working towards a specific goal, a change you want to see in a social or environmental cause. You want your projects to have impact. But what exactly does impact mean in this context? So we are now taking a closer look at the key terminology to, first of all, establish a common understanding of those terms in the context of your IKI Small Grants projects. When you think about result-based project management, then several terms pop into your head. It's results, it's impact, it's output, it's outcome, it's goals, and many more. But are those terms now interchangeable, or is there a difference? I wish I had a simple answer, but the truth is it depends. And it also depends a lot on whom you ask. For us at GSH, and this is obviously what we are talking about today, results include outputs, outcomes, and impacts. This logic originates from the Development Assistance Committee of the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. So it's not only us who uses the terms like this. However, other organizations include outcome and impact only when they talk about results. So to be practical, results is an umbrella term that includes impacts and outcomes, always, and in our context, outputs too. But what are results now? There is a textbook definition that I would like to read for you. It is: results are intended or unintended, positive or negative changes in a situation or in behavior that occur as the direct or indirect consequence of an intervention. The observed change is considered a result of the development measure only if a causal or at least plausible connection can be demonstrated. Results may occur from the start of the project and throughout its entire duration and continue to evolve after its conclusion. All right, that's somehow a little bit bulky. You could also say it in a much more easier way. The results of your project are the consequences of your work, whether you are aimed for it or not. And that last part is especially important because with our projects, we usually get involved in very complex social contexts. And of course, we want to avoid any negative repercussions on our target group. An example would be channelizing water to improve irrigation for farmers in the village. That could also reduce the availability of water for other user groups, which might even lead to conflicts. So that would be an unintended negative result. To avoid something like that, we should anticipate those unintended results as much as possible and define criteria for observation in the monitoring system. We will get to the monitoring systems later on. Maybe just one hint here that this is also why we ask you to do a risk assessment and fill in our safeguard system, because this will help you and also us to monitor and to avoid any unintended negative results. Okay, with our projects, we obviously aim to achieve positive changes for our target groups, for environmental causes, for whatever problem we identified in our country, region, or sector, or whatever. So when we design and plan a project, we define the intended changes as the objective of the project at the outcome level for smaller projects, or even on the impact level for larger programs. This is very important that you as an organization, you implement smaller projects that usually aim at the outcome level. But as an organization that works for many, many years in the same region, on the same topics, you might even look on the impact level from time to time, so that you always have this vision of what is it that we want to achieve on the impact level. And you all know that changes in a situation or behavior rarely happen by accident. It's rather the result of long-term systematic planning. it takes a lot of time and effort and nerves and resources before any change happens at all. You all experience this in your day-to-day work, like when you try to convince your local government that cars are not the only means of transportation, or you are persuading farmers to use organic fertilizers or whatever. So results orientation can help you on the way to achieving your goals. It offers many advantages throughout the whole project cycle. If you focus on results from the beginning, that means from the initial project idea, not when you start your project, but already way before that, during the initial project idea and design phase, you are likely to work a lot more effective and cohesively, and that can even sometimes be more quickly. But why is that? And that's something, it sounds so obvious, but it's really something you should keep in mind, that it can really make a difference, because it provides orientation and motivation. A common objective creates a sense of purpose among your team members by helping them to see everyone's individual role in the project. This makes it easier to keep the project on track, and also to overcome some difficult periods when you maybe get stuck in your activities. So when you're working on an Excel sheet and sit in your office and wonder, why am I doing this? How does this help anyone at all? Then you might want to look at your results chain. Maybe you hang it somewhere in your office close to your desk, and then it can remind you that your activities are part of this bigger plan. And in the end, when everyone does their bit and all pieces fall together, then you will achieve the intended result. That is why results chain logic helps in keeping up the teamwork and motivation within your team. It is also a good idea to come back to the results chain logic with your team from time to time. And maybe not only with your team, but also with your partners somehow. That can help. And also celebrate your successes. And you can also reflect on some things that didn't go so well. Furthermore, it helps you to strategically communicate your goals to other stakeholders, to partners, to officials, to your target group. You can point out results and how you're working towards them, because that makes people much more likely to support your efforts, because then you can show, preferably with also measurable data, what was achieved already and what you are planning for the future, and also what are your next steps and what kind of support can be provided by your partners. So how do they fit in? Plus, results orientation is key for effective monitoring, and it can be a reference point for future projects, because it helps you to learn from your previous projects and make you work more effectively, hopefully, in the future. Yeah, let's now dive deeper into the different levels of results. You can visualize results in multiple ways. As a chain, as a hierarchy, as an axis, there are many visualizations available. I decided to use the staircase because it shows that results not only happen at different levels that build on each other, but that there are also gradients in each category. Results that bring about a societal change are referred to as impacts. They are long-term, overarching development goals, like, for example, also including the SDGs. Usually, individual, which is small-scale projects, do not aim at this level. This is why impacts are not included in the IKI Small Grants project application. However, the impact can be part of the wider socio-political context of your project. So it might still be important for you to reflect about your impact from time to time. An impact would be something like the resilience toward climate change of a target group in a whole region or country is enhanced. So it would take many projects and stakeholders who work on this topic in different sectors. None of those projects alone can claim that they are the only ones responsible for an impact to happen. But it's nevertheless important to be able to communicate that your project is part of this effort and is working towards this goal. Okay, next we have the level of outcomes. Outcomes are changes in the direct, short, and medium term. They occur within the target group and can be subdivided in change in the target group's circumstances, a change in the target group's behavior, or a change in their attitude or skill level. The project objective is usually located at this level. As an example, 500 smallholder farmers in a certain region are better able to cultivate and look after their fruit trees. So this would concern the skill level of your target group. This will be achieved by different outputs and activities. Maybe you will give trainings about agricultural techniques, while on the other hand, you hand out tree seedlings and fertilizers and approach the local government to build fences that protect the young trees. Impact and outcomes are generated by the products, services, and support that a project provides. That is why the outputs are the specific changes we aim to achieve through our measures. So how do we reach the output or outcome level of the project objective? Outputs are built on inputs and activities. You invest different things like time or money. Those are your inputs. For example, the available human, financial, or material resources like person days of a consultant, volunteers, funds, equipment, all of that. You use these inputs to implement your activities. Activities include all actions carried out within the scope of your project to achieve the intended results. That can be a workshop, a training series, a study visit, an awareness campaign, such things. Output describes the specific changes we aim to achieve through our measures, in contrast to the overarching societal changes at the impact level. So an example for an output would be female smallholders' skills in sustainably cultivating fruit trees have been boosted. From there, we derive our outcome again, the direct, short, and medium-term results of the measure. Outcomes include both the benefits the target group derives from the outputs and any behavioral changes that come with it, such as the female smallholders' fruit harvest is increased. The following impacts are the long-term overarching development results, like the nutritional situation of the female smallholders and their family has improved. Okay, that was now a lot of theory, so I will hand over to Laura for a more practical example.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. I think we have heard already some examples on your speaking points, but I would like to showcase all of the things we just heard in another example again. And I will use also the same example throughout the session today, so you can always refer back to it. And as I said also from the beginning, we will also share the presentation with you, so also you have the chance to later have a look on it again to go through the bits and pieces. So yeah, let's get practical. So we have an imaginary situation here. We have water bodies in an example region that are severely degraded with negative impacts on the health of ecosystems and humans alike. We're talking about the condition of Blue River that is especially concerning as the water quality has plummeted in the last few years. Experts identified household sewage and runoff from tanneries as the main causes of river pollution. So that's our initial situation here. Our imaginative organization works towards river and water conservation in Mud District. In the research project, we already found out that the highest load of household pollution is discharged in Blackwater municipality due to an inefficient treatment plant and poor practices at household level. So what would be the long-term result we would like to see achieved, the impact level? It might be something like the water quality of Blue River has improved to bathing quality. As you just heard from Lisa, of course, like to change the whole quality of a whole river, it's really, really hard to achieve. And that means that most probably our project cannot achieve this impact goal. And that's why, again, we're also not asking IKI Small Grants projects to reflect on such an impact. But a lot of projects would work on the improvement of quality of the Blue River. But then we arrive at the outcome level, and here this is something our project can actually achieve, because maybe we could say we want to achieve that less untreated wastewater is discharged into Blue River. This is our project goal, our overall goal, our outcome. And to achieve this objective, our project would have several outputs, of course. So for example, we might train staff members of tanneries on safe disposal of chemicals, but we would also work, for example, with local residents to increase the awareness of their role in river conservation. And at this stage, if you're planning a project, of course, you would also define your required inputs. For example, you would need to hire technical experts to design and facilitate trainings for the tannery staff. And also, of course, you have to think about the activities to be implemented. For example, training needs assessment for the tannery staff. So yeah, this is just a small example. And as I said, I will come back to it later. But now I will give the voice again to Lisa to continue with the theory behind it.
Yeah, okay. Back to the project cycle. And again, the question, why are we going the extra mile? Commonly, there are two different levels of control functions for which we need the results chain logic and the measurable data that comes with it. There is, first of all, the monitoring part, which is conducted by the project team. Normally, it reveals for us internally, how can we improve our activities? How can we operate with less financial and human resources? And what are the learnings from the processes we have already implemented? What went well, what didn't? How can we improve? So to do this, you set up a monitoring plan where you track your progress against predefined milestones and indicators on a regular basis. You can use this monitoring to identify delays or any other issues while there is still time to steer in a more favorable direction and avoid underperforming. On the other hand, and normally this happens at the end of your project, a project will have an evaluation phase. Evaluation phase now sounds like something really, really big, but I'm sure you have done this for all of your projects, even if it was only a one-day workshop or just sitting together and talking about how did it go. So even though it is conducted at the end of the project, it is absolutely critical to already think about it at the beginning of your project, because you need to collect the relevant data from the beginning. Otherwise, it will be super difficult to analyze and communicate the direct results that your project achieved. That is to demonstrate how your activities brought about a certain change. For an example, let's say there are 100 farmers in the village, and all of those farmers use harmful pesticides that poison the groundwater and make people sick. Your project now goes in and convinces 50 farmers to switch to organic agriculture. After a while, the water quality improves and people feel better. Of course, you want to communicate that this happened because of your intervention. And this will be much easier if you analyzed water samples at the start and the end of your project to show how the pesticide concentration decreased as a result of your activities. Again, both measures, monitoring and evaluation, are only set up to help you as a project team and your target group. It's not that you do this for your donors or for someone else, but it's really to help you get better. Because it's also important at the end of the day for your target group. And on top of that, it can save a whole lot of time and money and also your nerves. Okay, again, more practical part. I hand over to Laura for a small quiz.
Yes, thank you so much. I think now you have heard a lot of talking from us. So we prepared a small quiz for you where we would like to see what we have learned so far, basically. And then also afterwards, we will directly head to our group work in our breakout session. So the rules for this quiz, it's really easy. I will read out some examples of output and outcome statements, and every time one of the option is better formulated than the other. And I basically want you to guess which one is the better formulated one. And I will also open a poll question, so you can just click A or B, where you also see the sentence again. So basically, then we can see the results, like how many people voted for what. So let's get started. I will open the first one already. So we're now talking about an outcome statement, and your option is either the first one is national malaria response is improved, or is it better formulated if we say malaria prevention practices are adopted by target group? I will give you like 30 seconds or so. Of course, if you have any problems maybe to see the poll, you can also just write it in the chat, no problem. One person made their choice, maybe someone else. It's just guessing, we will not track. Now some more answers are coming in. B, also B. So mostly we're having response B for now. Someone else? Yeah. So I see more and more people are answering, and that's very good. All of you said answer B, and this is correct. Why? Because we see the behavioral change of the target group, and also the first one is not really it's not really specific. It's more also an an impact level, because it would be like the national malaria response. So very good. I will open the second one. Sorry, it's loading a bit, but maybe I can already start with reading it out. So the first option would be 50 coffee farmers reduce their CO2 emissions by operating biogas digesters. And the second option is trainings for 50 farmers on operation and maintenance of biogas digesters are implemented. So what do you think? I just started the poll now. I see someone suggesting A is the correct one. Someone else is going for A2. Another 30 seconds. Choose. See, so currently it's 60% going for A and 40% voting for B. So it's maybe not so clear. Okay, I give you the answer. Correct would be 2A, or what means correct? Better formulated would be 2A, because 2B would be actually an output indicator and not an outcome indicator. Okay, let's start the third one. So here you have the options between at the end of the project, at the end of the project, 100% of community members have access to drinking water within 150 meters of their home. Or at the end of the project, 80% of community members from a minimal sample of 200 people considered that the new water point responds to their need for a drinking water supply. Hope you can already see it. B as a suggestion. Other one going for B. Anyone else? Anyone else has suggestions? I only see 2 responses now. Okay, 3 responses. And we still 100% with B. Okay, I will give you the solution. You are all correct. B is the better formulated one. It's a little bit surprising because in our morning session, this question was like more 50-50, and now we have 100% suggesting B. We have to admit that it is a bit bulky, so this formulation could be a lot shorter and more precise. But what we just want to mention here, so in 3A, there is no sample size included. So always when there's a percentage, it's really critical to include a sample size, and that's why 3B is better. Okay, and then we would now go to the output level. And here we have the option, more people use mosquito nets while sleeping, particularly babies who are at higher risk during the rainy season. And B would be availability, access to, and promotion of mosquito nets among target group has increased. I'll give you 1 minute again. B as a suggestion. I see everyone's heading to B again. More suggestions. I see 3 answers. Anyone else would like to vote? 5 answers. Very good. And it's again crystal clear. 100% are suggesting B, which is correct again. Why? So 4A is again, it's too long, it's not clear, and it's also on the wrong level because the use of mosquito nets is a behavior change and thus an outcome. So yeah, 4B is the better formulated one. And then last but not least, we have one more. Again, on the output level, so it's either 50 coffee farmers know how to operate and maintain biogas digesters, or coffee farmers are trained to use biogas digesters. So again, what do you think? Should have prepared a prize actually for the person who has most of it correct. We have A as a suggestion. Anyone else would like to vote? Maybe it's also too easy. At least you're a group that is agreeing. Most of you are saying the same thing. Aha, we have now one counteracting. One is saying B. Get you another 20 seconds. Okay, the majority is suggesting A. And this is also correct. So again, I think maybe this quiz has been too easy for you. So yes, the B one is not as much good formulated as the other because it's again not specific enough, and it also does not include the number of the target group, while A does, so it's way more specific. Okay, that's it. Thank you for that. Once again, most probably it was just too easy for most of you. Next time I make sure to make harder suggestions. Okay, and now it's your turn. As we promised, we will have now a group activity where you go through an example project and you formulate your outcomes, outputs, and so on and so forth. And Lisa and Isabel, they will join you in the session, so they will have a PowerPoint slide ready where they will write down what you're suggesting, and you will also see like the task again. But maybe before I automatically put you there, do you have any questions regarding the breakout rooms? I don't think so. Okay, no one is seeing any problems. Could I repeat? Yes, we're going to the breakout rooms now. If you have any more questions, so in the breakout rooms, we will make sure Lisa is there and Isabel is there, and they will provide you again with the task and also the slides to write down your results. Okay, I think everything is clear. Then I will open the rooms now and yeah, have fun and see you in 20 minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Sorry, I hope it wasn't too much interrupting.
This time I was prepared.
Yeah.
I now saw your message in the chat.
Right. So I think everyone slowly comes back. Maybe Lisa, you can reshare the presentation.
Yeah, working on it. I think this is where we left. Okay, welcome back. Yeah. I would like to continue with some input concerning indicators. I, of course, invite you to share your experiences and questions from the breakout session in the chat. We can also discuss this later on in the Q&A. But to come back to the topic, as you know, we have asked all of your projects in the application phase already to provide us with indicators. So what exactly are indicators and why do we need them? It's pretty simple. indicators are signs that something has changed. They help you to provide information on the progress being made by a project and on whether it is going as planned. And it also helps you to find out if you're still on track and if the objectives you have identified are still within reach. You can determine whether a certain situation or event has already taken place. This, again, sounds really straightforward, but in practice, you work on a project for several months and sometimes years, and it really helps you if you know how to keep track. Indicators are useful throughout your project cycle. During the planning phase, you can already ask yourself some basic questions like, which project objectives do we want to observe regularly? And do we have the necessary resources? This is really a critical question because sometimes it is really time intensive and also takes a lot of human resources to do these observation tasks. And also you can ask yourself, how do we determine that progress is being made and ultimately that our project has had the intended results? Did we define and set up definitions for the concepts that we use? Because there are different concepts for progress which are really abstract, such as improved or empowered. What does that mean to us? You have to find a way to make those abstract concepts measurable. And this can be really tricky, but otherwise your indicators won't tell you anything at all. Because if you have no idea of how to measure empowerment or improvement or effectiveness or any of those concepts, it won't tell you anything. And in the end, it's hard for you to say what you have achieved. So for project implementation, indicators are an important tool for overseeing your progress, for learning and for management. With their help, it can be determined whether the project is reaching the objectives that you have identified at various levels, at outcome and output level. So basically, you are cross-checking the outputs and outcomes you have set before. Indicators can serve as a baseline for your final project evaluation. Compare the results with the situation at the beginning of the project. Then learnings from the completed project can inform the planning of upcoming projects. It is critical within any project to really think about the indicators at the beginning of your project. It is also important that the indicators reflect objectives that can realistically be achieved. So they should not be overambitious just to please your donors. This doesn't help anyone at the end of the day, because it will only lead to disappointment on both sides. That's why we highly recommend to use realistic numbers and think twice if your indicators are easily measurable, because we don't want to overwhelm you with indicators that you are not able to achieve or measure. Because this also doesn't help us to achieve our indicators. Okay, Laura will tell you a bit more about what is a good indicator.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. So as most of you already know from your application, that we are always emphasizing on that indicators should be SMART. So what does SMART stand for? You see it also on the slide. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And I just would like to go through those dimensions a little bit more. So an indicator is specific when it is precisely worded and measurable. Vague descriptions like has improved or has increased are only helpful if indicators contain baseline and target value. Furthermore, if it is often really, really hard to actually measure that something has increased or improved. And that is why we as IKI Small Grants really want you to use indicators that can be easily measured by a project. Especially with small scale projects, we always see that somehow, like more overarching goals are stated, but it's really sufficient to, for example, just measure a number of trainings conducted rather than, for example, knowledge of target group has increased. If this is something your project currently does not have resources for, we understand you. Because normally big projects or programs conduct so-called pre and post tests to measure the level of knowledge increase for the participants of trainings or workshops. So then the participants have to fill out a questionnaire about the current knowledge before the training and then after the training. And with this, you can actually measure the increase of knowledge for the target group. And if you as a project have the capacity to do so, of course, you're more than welcome to introduce this kind of measurement. But again, it would also be totally sufficient if you just measure the number of trainings or the participants if you currently don't have the capacity for further data collection. But okay, I went a little bit out of the specific dimension. So to come back, it's also that statements such as regularly or periodically are imprecise and not specific enough. And specific indicators should never combine several issues. That means they should not be multidimensional nor be located on different results levels, because only then we can see clearly the result on which level it appears. And basically, this is highly related to measurable, a lot of things I just said, because the indicator is measurable if it's quantified with numerical baseline and target value. So as I said before, you should always include a sample size if you use percentage. So if you use, for example, 80% of something, you have to let us know if it's 80% from 200 or from 2000, because this actually makes quite a big difference. And it's also really important to keep in mind that the effort of data collection is super, super critical. Because it has to be really reasonable in relation to the relevance of your indicator. If it's like a small component of your project, please keep in mind what effort would you need to get the data to measure this small component. And that is why, for example, it's normally way harder to measure the increase in food production of a farmer compared to, again, a number of trainings you conduct with farmers. This is again related to the next one, the achievable one. So the changes captured by the indicator can be attained through the project activities implemented in the project duration. The target value of the indicator should be realistic and reasonable in relation to the time, financial, and human resources of the project. This means that the time frame and the scope of intended changes and the limits also your project has influence on should be objectively assessed. So once again, when we think about achievable, we as IKI Small Grants know we're talking about small organizations here. So that's why we don't expect you to plant 1 million trees or train 10,000 farmers. So just stick to numbers that are really achievable for you. Another critical point is relevant. It sounds so logical, but it's really, really critical to think again, what is your real objective and what are the components to reach this goal? And then to have a look on how this indicator measures the key dimension of the objective or the result. Because again, if your objective is, for example, to equip farmers with better knowledge about their agricultural production, it actually makes more sense to measure the number of training compared, for example, to the increase of food production, because you wanted to inform about the knowledge increase of the farmers. So it would really make more sense to measure the training than the increase in food production. And what's also really important that it's within the project sphere of responsibility. And then last but not least, there is also time bound. So the time it takes to reach a target indicator should be stated. The target value usually refers to the end of the project, but it could also be a milestone, for example. And what's really important is that please never include indicators that are outside your project duration. And to make this even more practical again, it's a good idea to maybe keep the checklist in mind. Yeah, that's on the next slide. And again, you will also get this presentation later, so you can double check. But first, always take care to ensure that an indicator is neither multi-level nor multi-dimensional. Did you include a sample size when you use percentages or relative numbers? Is the effort involved in examining the measured values reasonable in relation to the relevance of the indicator and the overall budget of the project? Take care that the indicator is realistic, and was the target value that is to be achieved estimated in an objective manner? And also, is the indicator relevant for measuring the main dimensions of the results, and is it on the correct results level? And now to even dive a little bit further on the indicator level, Lisa will show you about gender sensitive or gender transformative indicators.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this is another point that is fortunately becoming more and more important in our sector. This is gender sensitive indicators, and it's not only about indicators, it's that basically the idea is that all of our projects become at least gender sensitive, if not to say gender responsive or transformative. This terminology is a different topic, and maybe just as a teaser, there will be a webinar soonish about gender and project management. So hope to see all of you there as well. But for now, we encourage all of our projects to use gender sensitive indicators. Without going into any more details about this really huge topic, just a few tips what you can consider. So gender sensitive indicators have different attributes. This is, first of all, they are disaggregated by sex. So indicator findings are reported separately for men and women. This, of course, requires that you collect sex disaggregated data. That means if you collect data, for example, on training attendees, you should take note if they have been male or female or even non-binary, so that in the end you are able to report that, for example, 50% of your target group have been women. And of course, it doesn't stop there. So simply reporting, yes, 50% have been women, this does not tell you so much. So maybe if you conduct a training for professionals and then you go and collect data that is disaggregated by sex, you maybe don't want to stop there, because maybe 50% are women, but they are only at junior level, and you were actually aiming for the senior professionals. So this would also tell you nothing if you only say, yeah, 50% have been women. Maybe just keep that in mind when you collect data. Secondly, your indicators can be gender specific. So the indicator measures an initiative that is targeted at women, such as a women's cooperative. So if you work in this direction, put it in an indicator. Also, they can be implicitly gendered. This means that the indicator addresses an issue which is of specific relevance to women and girls. For example, the safety of public transport, or the accessibility of any public services or something like that. And also, and this is really important and easily forgotten, choose, an indicator can be chosen by women rather than men, because the indicator that is chosen by female community members or project staff is more likely to reflect the specific needs and priorities of women. So all IKI gender or all IKI Small Grants projects should be gender responsive. That means they recognize unequal gender roles, relations, and norms, and also attempt to actively combat them. But this will only be visible if it is reflected in the indicators. So please take a bit more time and formulate gender-sensitive indicators whenever possible. But again, there will be another input webinar on all of this gender topic. Okay, but that leads us to the general question on how do we formulate indicators? All indicators should contain information about who or what, the desired result, and in which means the desired result is anticipated and by when. Moreover, the selection of each indicator should be based on the availability of data and its relevance to the objective or the result. So don't pick too many indicators for each result. It's not necessary that you have 5 indicators for one output. It might be that you think, yeah, but all those indicators are relevant. But then you best go and choose strategically. Use the most important one or the one that is best suited to communicate your overall project idea to the donors or the partners. And this is also an important point, that you can choose and develop your indicators together with your partners or your target group. Because to agree on the data collection responsibilities and also the frequency of data collection beforehand, that can save you a lot of time and nerves again. And it also helps you to identify the most relevant indicators for your target group. Okay, but we are now coming back to the example with the river. Laura is again explaining what happens here.
Now we see it a bit more practical again. So I just want to go through this example again and let you know what would be possible indicators. So I think you remember our initial situation, and then we had agreed that an outcome might be that less untreated household wastewater is discharged into Blue River. So it would be possible to have an outcome indicator, which would be, for example, the bacteria pollution load at the main drains has decreased by 25%. Once again, I think you should only choose this kind of an indicator if you have data available that you can measure in this way, because bacterial pollution, maybe you would need a lab that you're working with. Otherwise, of course, another indicator could be formulated. Then as an output, we agreed that tannery staff members follow protocol for safe disposal of chemicals. How could we formulate an indicator? For example, 20 tannery staff members have completed 2 weeks of intensive technical training. And another output, we said we would suggest as residents are increasingly aware of the role in local river conservation. And here an example indicator could be, for example, a door-to-door campaign has informed 500 households about proper maintenance of septic tanks and sanitation facilities.
Okay, this was it for the indicators. And we now go to the baseline, the target value, and the means of verification, which are, of course, very closely connected to the indicator level. Yeah, what is the baseline? The baseline value is basically the starting point of your project. It shows the current situation before your project comes in and intervenes. A baseline can be 0, but many times it's actually not 0. So please make sure you identify a valid baseline for each indicator. A baseline is used to measure change and also to monitor the progress. All indicators must have a baseline before the start of the project. The baselines have multiple functions in the project cycle and are really, really useful for us as project managers. Because in the planning phase, they provide us with the basis for project design and for the project's concept. In the implementation phase, they provide us with values for measuring milestones, and this really helps for project steering. In the implementation and also in the evaluation phase, they make sure that your project can actually be evaluated. So since only with a baseline, you have comparable data that you can compare. And in the evaluation, also for the communication later on, they provide us with evidence for internal and external communications. Baseline data are the foundation for any indicator-based verification of your results. Because baseline values and target values substantiate the positive results that are achieved by your project. As always, there's more than one way to look at it. If you maybe remember the example from the beginning with the farmers who use dangerous pesticides. For this example, you could say 100% of the farmers in the village use pesticides. This is a baseline. And after you have convinced some of the farmers to switch to organic agriculture, only 50% of the farmers use pesticides. That could be the target value. But of course, it's also correct if you say at the beginning of the project, 0 farmers apply organic pest control measures. And then the target value would be 50 farmers who apply organic pest control. The result is the same. It's no difference. But it is important that you have good information before the start of the project. Because of course, you need to know that there are 100 farmers in the village, and you need to know that all of them use pesticides. If you don't have the information, there is no chance of measuring your achievement. Only if data is available on the initial situation, it is possible to assess whether changes have occurred and to what extent. If baseline data are missing, they must be reconstructed in the end, and this really takes a great deal of time and effort and resources. So this is why we recommend to use existing data if possible. But of course, then you have to check the reliability. And if you need to collect your own data, you should collect baseline data as early as possible. So really before the start of your project. Ideally, as soon as your beneficiaries have been identified. But always consider the cost and benefits of the different options for collecting information. Okay, after you set your baseline value, you have to identify a target value. Okay, what's a target? A target is the desired endpoint for each indicator. So target values should ideally be disaggregated, if relevant, so by sex, by geography, by age, by sector, whatever is applicable. And they should be time specific. That means it has to be clear when the target is expected to be met. So is it next month or at the end of the project? But of course, we know it is not unlikely and it's not unusual that some issues come up and targets need to be reformulated during the project implementation. So please don't hesitate to talk to us, to talk to the team, if you feel that it's necessary for your project to reformulate or to change the target values. This is not always negative, because you can also go and say, yeah, okay, we plan to reach out to 500 people, but now the project is only half over and we already reached out to 1,000. So please let's reformulate the target. That can also happen. But in any case, it's not unusual, and you can always talk to us if you feel something needs to be changed. Okay, finally, some tips for setting targets. Targets can be, like I pointed out, really a powerful project management tool, but they need to be treated with some caution. The SMART approach that we talked about for the indicators can also be applied for setting good targets. And wherever possible, use specific quantity, quality, and time. Be as specific as possible. That really helps. And be realistic. If you involve the right people, so your partners, your target groups in the selection, this helps you to set realistic goals. And yeah, that in the end is good for everyone. Review your targets on a regular basis to make sure you see if something needs to be changed. And this really is important, report honestly, because that is the best way to improve project design in the future. And it's not that we would say, oh, you said you reach out to 50 farmers, but now you only reached out to 49. So it's not a problem. We know the reality of project implementation. We have asked you to use milestones in the Gantt chart. Wait a second. Yeah, okay. What are milestones? So milestones are interim results. And we have asked you to use milestones in the Gantt chart. But they are not mandatory to use, but only there as a help for your project management. Milestones are points along the desired trajectory from baseline to target. They can help you to track the progress and identify any underperforming areas. They are most frequently used on the output level. So I was always wondering what's the difference now between milestone and the target, because it sounds so similar. Milestones are intermediate steps that the project should achieve on its way to accomplish a particular target. So, for example, if the target is to conduct 5 workshops within 6 months, then a suitable milestone could be the implementation of the first workshop in the 2nd month, or maybe even that you hire a consultant who prepares the input for the workshop, or that you have identified experts who are joining the workshop. So there's a wide range of possible milestones. But especially for targets that are far away and for something that needs a lot of interim steps, it can really help to set those milestones. Okay, I think I'm done here and hand over to Laura again.
Yes, thank you so much. We would have here now the example project again, but if I have a look on the time, and I would also like to give you enough time for the Q&A, I would just say that on the next 2 slides, you can see the baseline value, target value, and means of verification for the example project. And again, please feel free to have a closer look at them when we send you the presentation after this webinar, because now we also would like to see that it's your turn again. And guess what? Of course, we thought that we are using the same breakout sessions than before, and now you can work on the indicators from the example of the last working groups. And I guess that the rules and procedures have been clear from the last time. So I would leave you to the breakout sessions now for 10 minutes, and we'll get you back automatically again. So see you in 10 minutes. I hope that everyone made their way back. So yeah, we hope you had fun in the working groups. Once again, concerning also our time limitation, I would just like to state again that there is no solution we can give you for the task you had in the group activity section. because one project, it will basically not have the exact outcome, output, or indicators, because it really depends on which part the implementation organization is focusing on. We talked about it's always critical which data would be available and which parts can be measured, etc. So there's not one fit for all solution we can provide you. But we would just like to highlight again that the design of the project is highly dependent on the results chain logic. So it is really important to reflect on this logical framework as early as possible and to include as many partners as possible. Try to see it as a strategic planning tool and also as a motivation for your team, and not something to get stressed out or to please your donors with. In this case, it's us. So yeah, please don't get stressed out because of us. And it's really the heart of each project and helps you in each step of the project cycle. It is not there to have you stressed about the numbers, not even about the targets you have once set that you can reach them. It is really more about keeping the overall goal and milestones of your project in sight. It is also critical to have a good communication with your team and to be on the same page during the project implementation, so everyone can have a look on where the activities are, which activities might need more attention, or which ones are already working smoothly. And on top of that, it allows you to communicate to your target groups and why do you think this and that measure would actually help them to achieving their specific goals. So we really hope that this webinar has helped you a bit in finding your passion about results-based project management, and that you're now equipped to work for other great projects you're planning in the future, or maybe also it will help you in the upcoming revision process. And then now we would like to go to the Q&A part. So who has questions for us? Please feel free to either just unmute yourself and start talking. You can also use the chat. You can use the digital hand, whatever you feel like. I don't see anyone yet. Just feel free to speak also, no problem.
Maybe just one remark, because Maria?
Yeah. Sometimes I get a little bit confused when I design and write the projects between the numbers that I can use during each milestone. Well, we haven't got to there yet, but it comes very closely with indicators. I think it's a little bit of the problem because of I have to think in English, you know, and then I have to be so concrete, because in English everything is more compact and concrete. It's a thin line between the indicator and the milestone, and sometimes I get confused. It was something that was we were talking about a little bit. In the indicators, I understand that I only have to write the unit, which is going to be measurable. But I have seen that some donors, other than IKI, they make you design the project using a specific number in the indicator. And that makes me confused sometimes.
Yeah, I really understand your confusion. I have also worked with EU projects, and they only focus on numbers. It goes as far as counting how many emails have been sent back and forth in the course of an event. It's really crazy. And maybe we also discussed this in the morning session, that it's not only about numbers. Of course, there are quantitative indicators which focus on numbers, but there are also qualitative numbers, because it's not that if you give precise numbers, then your result is also better. That's not the case. Some some changes you just simply can't put in numbers. And if you say you conduct trainings because you want to increase the capacity or the knowledge of your target group, then measuring the number of people who have attended X number of trainings, that doesn't really tell you something about the increase in the knowledge. Yeah. This is only hinting in the direction. And it's up to you to decide if this is what you want to measure. Of course, it is easier for you as a project to count the number of events or the number of participants. And of course, it kind of reveals that people have been trained, but it doesn't say anything at all about the knowledge level. So it's just it's just a tool to help you. So don't get stressed about the numbers. They are not everything.
And maybe just to add, you know, I think it's also fine if, of course, in your application, most probably you mentioned a specific number, but then also sometimes it's like 1 year later, for example, until you actually implement the project. So I think now we are also in this revision phase where you can just state for yourself as well. For example, you can just say, in this indicator, I'm not quite sure how many people we would reach, for example. And I think there's also no problem if you just communicate it with us, or if you even say, I'm not sure if I should use quantitative or qualitative indicator here, and then we can just think about it together. And I think even with other donors, I think none should hesitate to just say also things where you're unsure about, because I think they also have more, they also have more advantage if then you develop it together and it's something that, you can measure, you can really achieve and so on, instead of putting a number that no one knows if this makes any sense, for example. So I think it's, again, just go to communication and also don't be shy. I think with a lot of donors, they're actually more understanding than I see that sometimes it seems that they're really far away, or they have no idea on the ground implementation. And I think this is true, but maybe if you just communicate to them that it's not so easy then to put any number, I think it's also fine.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. I don't see any other questions, or also not in the chat.
Have a doubt on out.
Yeah, we hear you.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you spoke about output, you told at one point, target group accept offers. So what does it mean? What's the meaning of that sentence?
Can you repeat one more time? Sorry.
When you speak about output, you told 3 points. One is target group accept offer. Second one, target groups are reached. Third one, activities carried out. So I want to know about this target group accept offers. What does it mean?
Yes, maybe if you think about the example from the breakout session. So that was really something critical, like eatable insects. That is something where most people would say, ooh, that is not my cup of tea. So you first of all have to go to your target group and convince them that this is something valuable for them, something they would want to learn about, want to work together with you. And this is when they accept your offer, because you want to conduct a training, but for your training you need attendees. And if no one wants to come, nothing will happen. And so this is really this basic level.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So I think maybe just to give you an example, I think for a lot of for a lot of projects, it's something like a kick-off meeting, for example, with the target group is very often used, or also consultation with the target group even before you start your project. Something like this is normally something that leads to the target group accepting the offer.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, it's also not a problem, of course. I think then there's nothing else from our side to say. Then thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for participating. And once again, we will distribute the presentation with a handout and also this recording. So you can share it also with other team members from your organization, and everyone has the chance, of course, to get the same information. And if you still have open questions, also no problem, either contact us directly through IKI Small Grants or maybe also your project managers. And in general, never hesitate to contact us at all. And yeah, and that's it from my side. Thank you so much. Maybe Lisa, you want to have a last word?
Yes. Thank you. I can only add that we are really looking forward to working with you, because you all have amazing and super interesting projects. And yeah, it's our pleasure to be a part of those projects.
Maybe one more thing, we will leave open this chat. So if anyone would like to stay and talk with each other, also fine. Okay, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.